Hello, Northside families or other families of children or with children who want to learn a little bit more about anxiety and how we can best serve our kids during this time. It is so good to be here. My name is Melissa Wilson, but most of the time I go by Lil Wilson. That's where a lot of people know me as. My husband is a minister at Northside. He is one of our student ministers, and I'm a social worker. So I graduated with my master's in social work in 2012, and I have worked to obtain my clinical license. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I work for an agency in Jeffersonville. And I am our director of residential and clinical services. And so I oversee two programs. I oversee a counseling program, and so we have 6 or 7 master level therapists and a psychiatrist that I get to work alongside of, and I also oversee our residential department. And so we have about 32 kids living on our campus today, and they range from the age of 10 to 18. And so seeing all of those posts about being at home with your kids and going crazy, I'm still at work. I still go to work. Ironically, I'm home today, but I feel the same, just on a level of 32 kids, and it's crazy, but I love it, and I just feel so thankful that the Lord has called me to where He has put me, and that I am able to work with the kids that we get to work with. So currently, I am in my son's room because I was planning on being on work today. Some things have happened. I've worked a good amount of hours, so today I actually am off, and my son is in our living room watching TV, and my other son is asleep in his crib, and so this is like just perfect timing. And so today really I want to talk just in general about some anxiety for yourself and anxiety with your kids specifically, and maybe some ways that we can all come together to help our kids, because really that's what we want to do, is we want to provide help to our kids. So just some basic causes of anxiety or things that can cause anxiety. Genetics. So your genetics might have you feel more anxious. So again, you can't do anything about that, but if you realize in your own life that maybe your parents had more anxiety, you might also have more anxiety, and the same is true for your kids, right? If you have more anxiety, you might notice that one of your kids or some of your kids have more anxiety. A couple other causes, fear, which is huge right now, right? We are living in a time of fear. There are so many unknowns. Lack of control, which is again a huge thing that we're living in right now. Fear, lack of control, situations, life events. Again, this is a crazy life event that we are experiencing. And then again, your brain chemistry. So those are just a few of the causes of potential causes of anxiety. And so if you go down that list, right, we have a lot going on. So this is an unknown time. How many times have we said that, right? Like, I have asked, like, just for my personal job, like, I wish that there was a manual on how we could deal with this, because it is challenging and it is hard. And I think people who maybe have never struggled with anxiety are struggling with it for the first time. And people who are anxious in general, their anxiety is probably up. So if your anxiety is a 2 or a 3, most of the time you might be at a 7 or an 8 or a 9, depending on different situations. And again, because there's so much unknown. Lack of control, fear, just this crazy life of it, not knowing how long that we're going to be in these situations. And so some of the advice that I have been giving, some of the things that I've been talking about with our kids, parents, all different things, and I want to run down with this and through this list, and I hope that it is helpful and I hope that it's practical. As you're watching this, if you have questions or anything, love to answer those, so feel free. So one thing, and if you're on social media, which I feel like all of us are on social media and probably on it way too much at this point, is you'll see a lot of create routine and structure. And why that is so important is because it helps your kids know what to expect next. So if you have some kind of structure, and hey, whatever works for you. If you want to have like hour by hour and that is better for you, I'm a huge advocate of doing what is best for you and your family. But if you're just more like, okay, in the morning we're going to do this, and then we're going to eat lunch and we're going to do this, that's totally fine too. But if you have some type of routine and structure, that will help your kids know what to expect, because they're all thrown off. Like, I get some people are supposed to be on spring break this week anyway, but in general, our kids are all thrown off, right? They're spending way more time at home. They're not leaving home. That is not normal. And so just some unknowns about that. So if you create like some kind of outline for your day, and of course be flexible, right? Things will come up. You'll have to change things. But if they just kind of know a little bit of what's coming, it will help decrease their anxiety. And then one thing that I've just been recommending is still get ready for the day. It can be so easy to stay in your pajamas all day, or at least change your sweatpants or do something. Get your kids ready. Don't. Of course, some days, right, you're going to do like a pajama day or a movie day or something like that. But that just helps shift your mindset, right? That I'm not going to just lay around. Because if we lay around, then we're going to feel maybe not as good, and we might feel more lazy, and then we're going to lay around the whole day. So first, create routine and structure, but how that works for your family is key. Take care of your body, take care of your kid's body. So dehydration, once you just even become a little bit dehydrated, your brain is not functioning in the way that it should be. And so if your kids are not drinking water throughout the day, their brain is not functioning in the way that it could be or that it should be. And these poor little kiddos, right? Their brains are not developed already. And this is so confusing. And so set your kids up well. Make sure that they are hydrated. Make sure that they are fed. And make sure that they have snacks. I noticed in my own life, I have a 3-year-old, and it's been a struggle, right? He's in that awkward age, or that one tamper tantrums. Oh my God, whatever. Y'all know what I mean. So he's doing that, and then he's all thrown off. But I've learned, like, if he hasn't had breakfast yet, it's not worth getting into any kind of battle. Let him eat. Give him drink or give him water. So set your kids' bodies up well. Help them make good decisions when they are well hydrated, when they are well fed. So offer snacks. Try to offer healthy snacks. I get we're all limited, right? We're doing the best we can with what we got at the grocery store. Get active. So the number one thing people are like, oh yeah, when you're active, your endorphins, they rise, and that makes you happier. And that is true. But another thing happens to your brain when you become active. When you're outside, and you're running or you're playing, that also changes the other hormones in your brain. And so sometimes your brain can think of that as a stressful situation, because if your heart starts beating fast, or you get your blood pumping, and then your brain's, the chemicals start to balance, and that helps you deal with more stressful situations in the future. And so not only does it help with your endorphins, but it helps with those other brain chemicals that help set your brain up to succeed the next time you are stressed. And so get active, be outside, get your blood flowing, get your heart rate up a little bit with your kids too. Thankfully, the last couple of days have been beautiful. So take full advantage of that, while of course maintaining a safe distance. One thing that we have been trying to do is open up our windows. Get the sun into your home. You can go crazy sitting in a home day after day. And so anytime the sun is out, our windows are open, because it matters. I was talking to my dad yesterday, and I even said, sometimes when the sun is out, things just seem less scary. They seem less overwhelming, and that naturally helps people be in a better mood. And so have sunlight come into your home. And then, of course, sleep. Try to keep yourself on a schedule. Try to keep your kids on a schedule. Strongly encourage you not to look at social media before you're trying to go to sleep. It can be good and it can be informative, but it can also cause anxiety, and then you're going to have trouble sleeping. And then once you have trouble sleeping, then you're going to be up all night, and then you're going to be tired in the morning, and then it becomes a cycle, and then you start to stay up late. The same with your kids. Limit their screen time before bed, because that can get your brain going and can get it really active, and then it can be hard to sleep. Of course, be flexible, right? Again, sometimes you might watch movies, you might stay up late, but really try to have some sort of sleep schedule also. A thing that's just mentioned is limit social media for yourself, for your kids. It's good to be informed. You can drive yourself crazy reading every article about everything. And they will all say different things. And then I notice in my own personal life, when I'm on social media over and over again, I start to get anxious, right? My heart starts to beat faster. My mind starts to have all these anxious thoughts of like, where am I going? Or what am I thinking? Or what are we doing? And so just be mindful of that. Another thing is a gratitude list, and I'm a big advocate of this. So I started in January. I started doing a gratitude list, and it just helps with your mindset. And this is why it works. Like this part of the science behind it is your thoughts influence the way you feel, and your feelings influence the things that you do. And so if you are stuck in those negative thinking patterns, like, this is terrible, when is this going to end, I'm going to be in my home forever, I don't know how to do math with my child, I don't know how to do this school stuff, this is terrible, this is awful, I just want this to be over, those negative thinking patterns are going to influence the way you feel. And so you might feel more depressed. You might feel more anxious. You might feel like sitting inside all day and sitting on your couch. And then once you get into a cycle, then that's what your actions do. Then you do sit, and you sit in those feelings, and you sit in those thoughts, and it's hard to break that cycle. And so if you start with a gratitude list, or start with something to get that positive thinking from the beginning, then you're more likely to have positive feelings, and you're more likely to have positive actions. So again, your thoughts influence the way you feel, and the way you feel influences your actions. And so it can be so easy to get caught up in those negative thinking patterns in these moments. And so one easy way to do that is a gratitude list. Or post things in your home, or write an encouraging thought on your bathroom mirror, or do a craft with your kids and have them write it. Do something to start your day off in positive. So don't start your day off with social media, because that also can quickly spiral you into a negative thing. And so again, try really hard to be conscious of those negative thoughts that can get you in a loop. And then one thing that I recommend is make a worry time. As you go throughout your day, if you are feeling anxious or feeling worried, write it down and think, okay, this morning or tomorrow morning or tonight, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to pray about these things. And I'm going to talk to my spouse, or I'm going to FaceTime my friend, and I'm going to talk about these things. And don't let your mind get to a spot where you're worrying all day. Again, because what you think about influences the way you feel, and the way you feel influences the way that you behave, or influences your actions. So again, those are just some quick tips in general. Create a routine and structure. It helps kids know where they're going, what they're doing. Take care of your body. Set yourself up to succeed. Help your kids set your kids up to succeed. Dehydration and hunger really, really matter. Get active. Have good sleep. Limit your social media and news. Figure out some kind of way to have positive thinking from the start of your day. Gratitude list, some kind of saying, scripture, of course, is always great. Post it somewhere. Review it as a family. And then make a worry time. So designate a time where you can really spend time thinking about what's going on, and really focus on your worries and praying about those and reading scripture. And so those are just some basic strategies to help handle anxiety. These can be helpful for you. These can be helpful for your kids. So some specific things for kids for you to watch out. Your kid might not say that they are feeling anxious. Right? They might not be able to say that they are worried, because they might not even know what that means. Like, they might not know what it means to be anxious. They might not know what it means to have anxiety. And so, but they might express it through different ways. So they might tell you that their head hurts, or they might tell you that their stomach hurts, or they might tell you that they're having trouble sleeping, or they might be more quiet, or maybe some of their actions, if your kid is more in the middle school or high school and they're obsessively checking the news and reading and watching the news or reading about those news, those actions can show that maybe your child is feeling anxious. So again, they might not be able to express, I'm feeling anxious right now, but pay attention. If they're telling you that their stomach hurts, or they're telling you that their head hurts, or they're not sleeping as well, or they're on a lot of social media, those are cues that maybe your kid is feeling anxious. So some things that you can you can ask them, like, what are you thinking about? Like, what thoughts do you have going on? Or when do you notice that your tummy is feeling upset? Or when you're laying in bed and you can't sleep, like, do you have questions? What's going on? Another way that kids can show anxiety is through their anger. So sometimes kids are angry, and what we say is anger is, what I say, what other people say, is anger is a secondary emotion. So there is usually something behind anger. So when a kid is expressing their anger, there's something more going on. And it might not always be anxiety. It might be fear or something else. But so look at the anger, look at situations when they're angry, and kind of figure out maybe something is triggering them to feel anxious. And so again, ask them lots of questions. What are you thinking about? What's going on? When does your tummy hurt? How long has your tummy hurt? Notice their movements. Notice the things they might. This is us right now. My kids are super clingy. One, I think because he's teething, because he's like 1. But my 3-year-old, and I believe that he just knows things are off. And he's 3, right? So he's like in that he can't really express his feelings most of the time. But I know something because he wants us to hold him. He wants us to be near him. He asks questions like every day, like, where am I going or what am I doing? Today, bless his heart, he asked my husband, like, can we just go to someone's house? Because our friends are his best friends, right? And every day he's been wanting to FaceTime a couple of our friends. And I think truly he misses seeing people, but he's 3, so he can't express that. And so your kid, just notice if they're having different behavior or strange behavior or doing things that they weren't doing. Be patient with them because they might be feeling anxious and they just don't know how to express it. And so specifically in how to maybe help your child in this season or in this time, is you as the adult, be calm. Try to create a calm environment with your kids. And so if you are feeling anxious, which you might be, and it is totally okay, right? This is unknown. This is all new to us. Your kid will pick up on that. And so if you're feeling anxious, it might be wise to be aware of when you're having those conversations, right? If you're speaking to your spouse, do it in a spot or do it at a time where your kids can't overhear, because kids are they're way smarter than we give them credit for, and they have really good listening ears. Sometimes it's just selective listening, and so be cautious of how you are expressing your anxiety. So try to create a calm environment, and again, there is a balance, right? It is okay for you to sometimes express your worry. Well, mommy's a little worried about that or daddy's a little worried about it, but then talk about it. And ask them questions or ask them thoughts, because one, that helps them see like it's okay, right? It's okay, but also just be mindful in general overall of how are you presenting yourself? Are you presenting yourself more anxious? Again, because if we're one way, our kids are likely going to follow suit. And so if you are calm, you have a greater chance of your kid being calm. Also, I would recommend that you validate your kids' feelings. So if they say like, oh, I'm really worried about this, don't say, well, it's okay, you don't need to be worried. Because that can be dismissive. And instead, that doesn't eliminate their worry. It can cause more worry, or their worry just continues, and then they don't want to talk to you about it. So some responses might be like, tell me more about that. Or why are you feeling worried? Or what's going on? Let's talk about it. And of course, always thanking them for sharing. Thank you for sharing that with me. I didn't know. Or I really appreciate you telling me that. Always come and let's talk about these kinds of things. And let's also acknowledge these can be hard conversations to have. It is uncomfortable at times to talk about our mental health. It is uncomfortable to talk about us as adults when we are feeling anxious. And so it can be uncomfortable for you to ask your kids these questions or acknowledge these things from your kids, but I would strongly encourage you to do it. You're the adult. Be okay with being uncomfortable. And I believe in the midst of this, there are good things that will come out of this. There are good things to come. And we know that God can use so many things for his good. And so maybe after this, that your family would have more comfortable conversations or feel more comfortable talking about hard topics or talking about mental health. And so again, it might be uncomfortable for you, but be willing to step out and have that conversation and acknowledge it and don't dismiss it. Some other things that could be helpful for you in managing this with your kids is be their main source of anxiety or be their main source of information. Monitor their social media. You be proactive in talking to them about the things that are happening or what is going on, and deliver information appropriately and truthfully. So their level of development and understanding, have conversations, use words that they can understand, and deliver it appropriately and truthfully, and say, I don't know. If you don't know, mommy, when am I going to be able to go see my Mimi? My 3-year-old asks me that every day. Can I go to Mimi's house? Can I go to Mimi's house? Nobody. When can I go? I don't know, bud. Like, we're just trying to stay healthy. We're trying to stay safe. Things like that. Like, say, I don't know, but also acknowledge them. What, if they ask, what is the virus? Now, you might not want to go into extreme details, but tell them about it. It is okay. Because here's the thing. If they ask you and you don't answer, they're going to keep it in their head. And when it's in their head, then usually it becomes an even bigger deal. So then their anxiety rises because why is my mom not answering my questions? Why is my dad not answering my questions? Oh my goodness, I need to be more concerned than what I thought I needed to be concerned because no one will talk to me about it. And then all of a sudden they're like wondering what the virus is. And then this is true. Then they might start to think like, oh my gosh, is my mom or dad going to pass away? Like, are they going to get sick and not make it? And so it's really important to address their concerns and address their worries and answer them truthfully, answer them appropriately, and say, I don't know. Again, it's the worst if they keep it up in their head because they usually make it into a bigger deal than what it actually is. And in the middle of this, don't plant ideas in their head. Be like, oh, are you worried about your grandmother? Are you worried about your Mimi? Are you worried about your grandpa getting sick? Are you worried about your friends at school? Like, don't ask them those kinds of questions because then they'll be like, well, I wasn't, but now maybe should I be? Like, should I be worried about this? And so again, finding that balance of answering their questions appropriately and truthfully, being okay to say, I don't know, but also don't deliver more information than what they're asking. Because if you have a good conversation, a good foundational conversation, then they'll come to you. They'll come to you if you have more, if they have more worries or more questions or more anxiety. And so again, don't plant information to make them feel more anxious. But answer information truthfully. And then obviously, part of this is you may have to help your kid understand what they're feeling. We call it feelings identification. They might not know. And we talked a little bit about that earlier. This woman named Sissy Goff, who is not related to Bob Goff, she wrote a book that is specifically about anxiety, and it focuses on girls, but it also is very relevant to boys. And she talks about, she calls it like the worry monster. And so this idea of name it to tame it. So if you help your kids have a name for their feelings, then they can help it get more under control. So if you do name it to tame it, so name it the worry monster or a silly name, a funny name, something, but then they can say that, right? Like Daddy, I think the worry monster is coming. And then you have an idea of like what that means and what's going on. And so name it to tame it is a really, and that applies to every emotion, right? If they're help them understand what anger is and help them understand what sadness is and happiness, and then they can name it and then they can tame it or they can help get better control over it. And so just be mindful of that, of helping them understand what they're feeling. And then we talked a little bit about this already, but pay attention to your kids' triggers. Triggers are like warning signs that they're feeling anxious. If you pay enough attention, you might realize, okay, they seem really a lot more anxious in the morning or around meal times or in the evenings, or they seem more anxious when I have the news on or when I'm on my phone, or they seem more anxious about at bedtime. And so just be mindful of that or what you're doing. Right? Again, if the news is on or if you and your spouse are talking about what's going on and they hear that or they catch on to that, you might notice. And so if you can be aware of like when their triggers, like when it is happening, it might help you kind of be proactive and like stop those conversations or be more mindful when you watch the news and those kinds of things. And then the one thing would be develop coping skills. And so coping skills are just things you can do to help manage your feelings. And so one that is scientific and really easy to do is deep breathing. Now so this is what my kids do. They're like, I'm like, okay, that's not deep breathing. But you would want to inhale for 5 seconds and exhale for 6 seconds. And so how you would want to do it is you would see your belly moving. Another thing is helping kids, like if they can blow up balloons, that's like an easy way to practice. Blowing bubbles is also an easy way to practice deep breathing because it helps them understand the breathing. You should be able to see your stomach. That's what I tell a lot of my kids. You should be able to see your stomach move. In for 5 seconds, out for 6. And you can Google this. There's tons of things. It's called a square breathing, like breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And if you do that a couple of times, and that's easy for you to do with your kids, to teach your kids. But here's the thing, you're going to have to practice that. So practice that when they're calm. So then when they feel anxious, they'll know what to do. And a lot of that is rewiring their brain. So there's so much brain chemistry that goes into that, right? That if you practice these skills when they're calm, then they'll start to be able to use them when they are more anxious. And again, you have to might prompt them. These are things you can do together. So deep breathing, it slows your body down. It slows those brain chemicals down. Being active is just a good thing to do. We've already talked about that. Another thing that is really helpful, can be really helpful, is meditating on scripture. And so maybe your family has a family verse, or I'm going to pull something up on my computer really quickly. Or maybe this is a time to develop a verse, or maybe you can write a verse in your house that you can just go back to and say, hey, let's read this together. Let's think about this. Like, what does this mean? What does it say? And if you fill your heart with that and you fill your mind with that, that can help lessen your anxiety. Some really good ones, just the Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God, is the first part of that. And one thing you can even do is say that and like be still and know, be still and know that I am, be still and know that I am God. Again, it slows your brain down. And that's true, right? We want to fill our minds with the truth. Psalm 34:18, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. 1 Peter 5:7, give all your worries and cares to God, for he cares for you. So again, scripture meditation, put scripture around your house, speak it over your children, pray it over them. And then, of course, praying together as a family, praying individually with your child, you praying for your children. And again, this can be uncomfortable. I work with a lot of our high school students, and it is uncomfortable to pray out loud. I get it. It can be really challenging. But the more you do it, the easier it is. And so what an opportune time for you to start praying with your family if you're not doing that, or praying with your kids individually, or when they are feeling anxious, praying over them in the spot or at the spot. And just stop what you're doing and pray. And then some other simpler things can just be coloring or drawing or journaling. All of those things can help just ease your mind or relax your mind. And again, maybe it's riding bikes or maybe it's doing something fun. Can all be good things. So really that is that's a lot of information in a little amount of time, and I hope that if you can even just pull one or two nuggets out of that, that could be good. And again, this is all brand new, right? We don't know how to navigate this. We're all trying our best, and I believe that. And I'm so grateful for Northside and what all they are doing. There are so many things you can get involved. If your kids are in middle school and high school, the Rising and Alive are doing stuff. Obviously, we have this amazing Facebook group, and there's so many activities kids can watch on Facebook and do, and all these resources for parents. How great is that? We have the Join Women group, who is happening and equipping women. Also, the Return is doing things. So granted, this is not ideal at all, but I just so appreciate all of the resources that are happening to help people and equip people on how to deal with all of this. So again, thank you so much. I hope some of this is helpful. Always reach out for questions. I will do anything I can. Northside will be helpful to anyone that they can. And so again, we're in this together. I believe God is going to use this for good, and we're going to come out of this stronger. And so again, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this. I hope you all have a great rest of the day.